There is nothing like AERC in the entire globe. It's not just a think tank, but there is actually a think tank in AERC.
AERC has an impact not only on people, but also on policy.
AERC is well respected globally as that type of institution. It's got global reach. It is a model, and we have seen the AERC being copied by other capacity development institutions around Africa. That's a mark of success.
The AERC, established in 1988, is a premier capacity-building institution in the advancement of research and training to inform economic policies in sub-Saharan Africa. It is one of the most active research and capacity-building institutions in the world with a focus on Africa.
So it's a highly integrated knowledge organization spanning capacity building, collaborative training, research, and policy outreach, with the ultimate goal of enhancing informed policymaking in Africa.
AERC's mission rests on two premises. First, that development is more likely to occur where there is sustained sound management of the economy. Second, that such management is more likely to happen where there is an active, well-informed cadre of locally based professional economists to conduct policy-relevant research.
It began as an initial interaction amongst the three East African countries. Amazingly, that was the kernel. The departments of economics, University of Dar es Salaam, University of Nairobi, and Makerere.
And it was perceived that in order to give it the opportunity to grow, it would rather be an independent institution.
AERC builds that cadre through a program that has three primary components: research, training, and policy outreach.
The countries themselves were not well equipped to put in place the kind of policy measures that will help solve the problems, largely because of poor capacity. And therefore, most of our economists had become used to, from the center, dictating how resources should flow to various parts of the economy. That was incompatible with the new market economy that were being developed. So AERC stepped in and provided the kind of research support that would facilitate economic reforms.
The organization has now emerged as a premier capacity-building network institution integrating high-quality economic policy research, postgraduate training, and policy outreach within a vast network of researchers, universities, and policymakers across Africa and beyond.
Our government used to take decisions without prior research. Universities, on the other hand, were conducting their training program, their research, without due regard to the policy making. So AERC was established precisely to actually try to fill the gap between research and policy.
I can see the support that AERC has grown, especially in support expansion of universities across Africa. We have admitted new universities. I've seen the network of AERC grow, so the program has ideally grown.
Although AERC was initially initiated by foreign donors, there came a time when Africans needed to take ownership of the organization and its activities. Professor Benondulu served as the first African executive director of AERC and has since risen in the economics ranks to become the governor of the Bank of Tanzania. Economists in the continent needed to participate in doing research in order to inform governments for policy making in Africa. As such, there was a great need to augment a pool of researchers within the continent. AERC has increasingly received global acclaim for its quality products and services and is ranked highly among global development think tanks. Among the many African countries that support AERC's programs include Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Nigeria, South Africa, Malawi, Zambia, Burundi, Zimbabwe, Rwanda, Mozambique and Ghana. The consortium has become the major producer in sub-Saharan Africa of central bank and Ministry of Finance officials, top economic advisors in government, private sector practitioners and thousands of academics.
The AERC is a visible organization in East Africa and definitely in the rest of Africa. It's visible as a model institution for training economists, but for training in general, for building research capacity in general, and for policy and dialogue. Of course, the AERC is not just a think tank, it's a think tank plus. So the brand is recognizable. Of course, the brand needs to go global in the sense that, if it can become a model for other institutions to be similar in different regions, then we really feel that we've added something to the policy-making agenda globally.
The institution has had a lot of influence on the development of economy. Second, and it has improved the quality of economy, the training of economists. I think now the people who are going through AERC programs, they are as good as an economist trained anywhere in the world. So that is something which has been universally acknowledged by everybody. But also in key financial institutions, you have people now who are working there in senior positions who are AERC products. The research the institution is doing we've got a lot of policy relevance. Even when we have all these policy seminars, basically you are utilizing some of the research findings in order to inform the policymakers. So this is again a contribution which cannot be matched by any other institution.
AERC is continually building up an active, well-informed cadre of locally based professional economists to conduct policy-relevant research. This is done through the AERC programs of research and training. AERC has 3 training programs that meet international standards: the Collaborative Masters Program CMAP, Collaborative Masters Program in Agricultural and Applied Economics CMAAE, and the Collaborative PhD Program CPP.
So in terms of collaborative research, there are themes that we have already identified for collaborative research. So within these themes, we then decide which of the topics we want to go with for any particular moment in time, and then of course we issue a call for research proposals or expression of interest.
AERC holds an intensive annual 14 to 16-week residential training program known as the Joint Facility for Electives JFE, which serves both CMAP and CPP. At the JFE, AERC brings together instructors and students from AERC network universities to undertake a commonly agreed set of elective courses.
AERC has 3 training programs. The Masters in Economics, the Masters in Agricultural and Applied Economics, and the PhD program that runs in up to 40 universities. Now these programs are all interrelated and are linked to the mandate of AERC, which is to build quality capacity for economic policy making for the development of Africa.
Their original objective was to look at PhD training, not the MA. But we quickly realized that you could not go to the PhD because everything else below was very, very weak. So we decided that the entry point had to be the master's. Why? Because it has 2 effects. One is that it sets standards for the undergraduate level, what people need to do if they want to go to a master's program. Secondly, it prepares people by giving them a solid foundation to do a good PhD, particularly in the area of coursework, because at that time African PhDs generally, and degrees at African universities, were by thesis alone.
AERC was created to spearhead capacity building. It is still the premier institution in Africa in terms of capacity building. It is still the clearinghouse to show you where capacity is. And it's also the place where you report where capacity constraint is coming from.
JFE's innovative focus and intensive academic teaching produces a cadre of qualified graduates who are absorbed in policy-making positions in public and private sectors and within the academic profession. AERC holds 2 major seminars in a year for both policymakers and researchers in their network. One, the biannual workshop, is held twice in a year and serves as a platform for presenting commissioned papers in order to explore new themes and approaches. Resource persons who are senior economists give their comments on the quality of papers, offering constructive criticism to ensure that the young researchers produce relevant quantitative research that affects policy.
For me, even when I graduated with my PhD in the year 2014, I really looked forward now to coming back to the AERC biannuals, now not as a student but as a researcher, because I used to look at the researchers who were presenting when I was a CPP student, and I would want to be like them. And so I put in a proposal, and luckily it was accepted. And it's been interesting going through the 3 cycles of the AERC biannual, because my paper has, my writing skills, my research skills have improved, and I have seen my paper improve from a mere proposal to a good paper that I can put out there for publication.
At the beginning, it was mainly macroeconomic policies, but now we have technical sessions in the area of poverty, macroeconomics, investment and growth, finance, which is another aspect that wasn't there at the beginning. Then we have political economy, and now we have trade as well.
A peer review during the workshop also allows the sharing of ideas while improving others' research. 2. The Senior Policy Seminar, SPS, is held once in a year and brings together some of the continent's policy makers to debate on issues of the day and their impact on policy making in Africa.
Tapping into the network of AERC gets us to access studies that have been done by researchers on the development challenges facing Africa.
The African Development Bank associates itself with the broad objectives of senior policymakers seminars in providing us with the opportunity to exchange experiences and deliberate on topical issues.
The African Research Consortium has conducted research and seminars on thematic areas, on policy reform, programs on decentralization. The other day we were in Cameroon talking about the commodity boom and how it affects the African economies. Today we are talking about climate change and how it impacts on economic development and growth. These are issues independently researched by an independent institution, but they have direct bearing on policy implications in government.
AERC has imparted a sense of professionalism in economics as a discipline.
We feel that we are making significant contribution. We have people in key positions in Africa.
Africa was consuming goods, but also ideas from outside. So AERC is about promoting generation of ideas from within Africa.
I have gained a lot myself in terms of experience and even the financial support you get, and some of the literature that you get at AERC, it's not easy to come by.
Tremendous benefit to the African governments because they now have economists who appreciate the African reality. They're not trying to conceptualize outside of Africa. There are people who have lived in the continent, they grew up there, and they are now experts. So the government has the best policy options to pick from.
I think the AERC economists will be preferred because they are highly capable people.
The government hopefully now will not implement those policies. It's one thing for you to articulate good policies, it's another thing for government to implement. But over time, if we sustain this, then the governments in Africa will have no choice.
AERC is professionally run and has 3 principal organs: the Board of Directors, the Program Committee, and the Secretariat. It manages its training programs through academic boards. It may not be easy to measure the impact of capacity building, but AERC's impact on Africa can be felt through the interaction of its network members with governments. The AERC network consists of current and former AERC researchers as well as resource persons supporting the research program, instructors for the CMAP, CMAAE and CPP elective courses, members of the academic boards, and students and institutions supported by AERC.
PTA Bank has a regional financial institution that focuses on trade, industrialization, agricultural development. We need focused insights on what works, what doesn't work. Research essentially is important to what we do. Going forward, we would be keen to continue the engagement, of course, but with a specific sense of research questions that we ourselves would like to see answered. So we might collaborate with the AERC on research projects, depending, of course, on what's on the table.
We at the African Development Bank have launched a 10-year strategy to support the aspiration of inclusive and green growth in the continent. So, and this is where AERC comes in. It is an institution like no other, no exception. An African institution like no other that fills this critical gap of knowledge and leadership.
I think actually the AERC is one of our best investments in capacity building in Africa. We've benefited from the training programs, from the research workshops. They inform our thinking about economic policy in Africa. And of course, many of the alumni of AERC are now our counterparts in government.
Congratulations to AERC. I think you've done a good job. I think that in the years that I've been associated with this institution, it has stood out as a center of excellence. And then my hope also that it can continue growing and also embracing the continent. In the next 25 years, depending on what we do and how we value the institution, I see it still continuing to play a very big role, with its outputs still playing a more critical function in policy making.
As long as African institutions continue to be weak, we have to strengthen them because of capacity. They are not weak because of lack of resources. They are weak because of capacity. And we have to improve the human capacity, and that is where AERC becomes very important. So the objectives for AERC are still varied now, and they still be varied 25 years to come.
AERC should be a network for all of us in Africa.
This is a model that can be replicated across other disciplines and across other social aspects of life to integrate Africa as we go forward.
The AERC that I see in 25 years' time is an evolved AERC, is a different AERC.
In the next 25 years, AERC will still be relevant. Sustainability for me is not only financial sustainability, but it is the validity of the objectives for which AERC was created.
We also have taken a view that there should be robust private sector engagement. In the past, this remarkable success of AERC has been achieved mainly in the public domain. So issues of mutual interest between public and private sector is now at the center of our strategic plan.